Hello, my name is Tony. In the late 60s and early 70s, American mainstream cinema found itself in an almost unparalleled period of creative innovation and genius. Notable examples of pushing the boundaries of certain genres and redefining the content and intent of the Hollywood movie include Bonnie and Clyde, The Wild Bunch, The Godfather, Clute, The French Connection, Dirty Harry, The Exorcist, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Parallax View, Chinatown, and Jaws. These films were textbook examples of how to reimagine popular entertainment as a meaningful, intelligent art form. Classic works and no mistake. It didn't last though, because then came Dum 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 Dum. Yep. George Lucas and Star Wars. These two pissed in the chips big time. Now I can't fully blame Lucas for the global dumbing down of Hollywood cinema. I mean, he never actually said or implied, hey look, this lowbrow, badly acted, poorly written, visually stunning but otherwise empty, thick-eared B-movie fairy tale template is the way forward from now on. So jump on board, stooges. Nope, he's not responsible for the way corporate Hollywood reacted to Star Wars, the way it let it dominate their whole fucking mindset. But nevertheless, I can't help thinking, if only he'd been hit by a truck and flattened into the tarmac before making it. I can dream, I suppose. I admit I was as much taken in by the hype to some degree as the next rube. I queued for an hour in the pouring Welsh rain to see it. I knew it wasn't going to be the actual thing it was being bulled up to be, but I still expected it to be a bit special. 30 minutes in and I was thinking, Jesus, this is truly fucking terrible. Okay, the score is great, can't argue with that. The visual effects are stunning, which for the time they undeniably were, but the plot is appalling junk. The acting, apart from, say, Guinness and Cushing, is fucking pathetic. Jokey teen drama school stuff, and the dialogue is utter fucking dross. But, like the Jam said, and that's what they got. The biggest shitload of unadulterated, major league dumb ever to grace the silver screen. And the rest is history. I thought, on the walk home from the Market Hall Cinema, still in the Welsh rain, which only stops occasionally, well, it's just the craze of the moment. It will run its course. How fucking wrong was I? You know when I knew we were really fucked? Let me tell you, at the end of The Spy Who Loved Me it says James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only. Well, he didn't. He returned in Moonraker. They sent James Bond into space and replaced his Walter with a laser gun. That was the point I realised we were really fucked up beyond all recognition. George Lucas and Star Wars had, probably unintentionally, killed the movie industry as we knew it. Bastards. Now I don't begrudge Star Wars fans their product. They love it, and that's valid. To them, I don't begrudge its existence much, but I do begrudge the fact that almost overnight Hollywood movies in general became that little bit stupider. Well, let's be honest, in some cases a lot stupider. It was like the creative dynamic got, well, super retarded, because a dumb movie soon became a dumb franchise and made an unimaginable amount of money, and still does even now. In the blink of a cash register, America went from producing the best mainstream movies on the planet to figuring out it didn't really have to try that hard to make millions after all. And as for the general audience, as is the way of the culturally clueless masses, sadly, they dumbed down to keep pace. I know perfectly intelligent, thoughtful cinema goers who used to love good movies. After Star Wars, they became cretins. Nowadays, they watch endless superhero flicks and dribble into their soup. Lives ruined. Maybe I can illustrate a bit clearer what I mean. Take One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for instance. Suppose it had been made post-Star Wars. Hands up who thinks that some movie execs would have lobbied for it to be set in a mental health facility in a space station orbiting Jupiter. Get in the picture? This imaginary scenario was an indicator of the post-Star Wars movie world. It influenced how studios thought about movies in a wholly pervasive and adverse way. It could be argued more positively that it heralded an increased interest in sci-fi. Hence, we got some classic blinders like Alien and Blade Runner, and those others. All well and good, but the damage wrought was, to my mind, not worth it in the scheme of things. There's a blame-sharing argument that Jaws was as much a negative factor as Star Wars, citing an ongoing preoccupation on the part of the studios at the time with creature features and seasonal blockbusters. Difference is, though, Jaws is a superb film, a top-rate thriller, and breathtaking example of how to generate suspense by tapping a primal nerve in the viewer. Magnificent as it was, though, it didn't punch a hole through the industry in quite the same way as Star Wars Wars did, nor spread the rotten infection of dumbness quite so virulently, because Jaws was not dumb. It was a clever and inventive piece, pitting man against a force of nature, and it had its roots firmly planted in the classic literature of Moby Dick. To replicate its success would require equivalent cleverness and creative thought. Films like
Grizzly and Orca
couldn't come close. Plus, I doubt many movie execs would have entertained introducing a killer shark into One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Although, you never know, there was that boat trip scene. And here's another thing. The same year Star Wars came out, one of the greatest movies in modern cinema history was released, William Friedkin's Sorcerer, and it tanked like a motherfucker. It was a reimagined version of The Wages of Fear, and it was absolutely brilliant. Quite simply a masterpiece. No movie has ever been such a gritty, sweaty, exhilarating, exhausting, tension-packed, emotion-drenched treatise in atmospherics and the depiction of human frailty in the face of utter desperation. Did the critics like it though? No, they were too busy heaping praise and accolades on the dumbass sci-fi B-movie. Did people like it? No, they stayed away in droves because emotional intelligence, genuine artistry, skilled storytelling, and damaged humanity weren't selling that year. Hollow cardboard ciphers and whiz-bang visuals with fizzing neon swords were. Beeping dustbin-shaped robots on casters were. Camp gold robots with English butler diction were. Big hairy yowling aliens were. Asthmatic villains with inverted coal scuttles on their heads were. Dumb was selling that year, and for every year after. Still, nowadays at least Sorcerer has been reappraised as the masterpiece it is and always was, and Star Wars, sadly, it remains the template for the most part, one that Hollywood will seemingly never relinquish. What has any of this got to do with High Plains Drifter, the subject of this video? It's this. High Plains Drifter was made and released at the right time, pre-Star Wars. If it had been made post, it would have been set on Mars, and it would have relied on a lot of clunky exposition so as not to confuse or thought-provoke the audience too much, which would have turned it into a piece of shit. As it stands, it didn't happen that way, so let's be grateful. Clint Eastwood's second movie as star and director remains a prime exemplar of that immensely fertile early 70s period of creative cinematic innovation in Hollywood. Not just another western, more than that, much more. I saw the film in the Market Hall Cinema in 1974, and it held me spellbound and left a lasting impression. It was unlike any western I had ever seen before, and until this very day, a Wednesday, it remains a uniquely original and challenging excursion into the heart of darkness. So let's take a look at it. Here's the plot with, warning, spoilers. Eastwood's unnamed stranger rides out of the shimmering heat haze into a town called Largo, apparently a pit stop to somewhere else he is just passing through. Within the first 10 minutes he's shot and killed 3 men and raped the town bike. Spending the night in the local hotel, the stranger has a dream of the former town marshal Jim Duncan being whipped to death in the street by 3 outlaws, whilst the townspeople look on and do nothing to help. Next day he is offered the job of town marshal. Considering what happened to the last one, this doesn't seem to hold that much appeal, and he initially refuses, until he is offered anything he wants in Largo in return. And now the fun begins. Seems Largo is corrupt and most of its citizens equally so, and complicit in Jim Duncan's murder. They betrayed the 3 thugs they hired to kill the hapless lawman, and now these violent degenerates are being released from jail and heading home to extract revenge. The not so good people of Largo need the stranger as their defense. The stranger takes over the local hotel, makes the midget Mordecai the town sheriff, and takes full advantage of his deal, gradually running the place into the ground. He has the townsfolk paint all the buildings, including the church,
I mean especially the church,
bright red, and changes the place name sign from Largo to Hell. He instructs the locals in defensive tactics. They're fucking useless, by the way. Yet when the outlaws are about to arrive, he rides out and abandons them to their fate. Later that night he returns and kills the 3 outlaws in a very eerie climactic confrontation. On the next day, whilst leaving, the stranger pauses at the town cemetery where Mordecai is working on a grave marker. Mordecai says,
I never did know your name.
To which the stranger replies,
yes you do.
As the stranger rides out onto the plains, merging and becoming one with the shimmering heat haze, the name on the grave marker is revealed as Jim Duncan. Why is it so good? As usual, I'm going to tell you, whether you want to know or not. Eastwood's direction reflects his on-screen character here. Lean, cool, laconic, charismatic and anti-heroic. His stranger is dark, amoral, violent and downright hardcore, whilst retaining a sardonic sense of humour. His unwritten mission is to make the townsfolk of Largo face up to and pay for their sins. At the time and over the years since, there's been ongoing debate, discussion and theorising as to who and what he is. For me, it's simple-ish. He's a supernatural representation of the murdered Marshal Jim Duncan made flesh. He says so at the end, without being that explicit of course. The other signpost comes when one of the characters mentions that Duncan's spirit cannot rest so long as he is buried in an unmarked grave. There is no single absolute explanation for the manifestation of the stranger, so don't waste your time looking for any. Yet, some imagine he's the devil, or an avenging angel of the Lord, or Jim Duncan's brother, which he was in an early version of the screenplay. But then, to make any of that fit, you'd have to rationalise his vivid memories of Duncan's death. Nope, for my money, he's dead Jim. Sorry, he's dead Jim Duncan, returned in a different guise. Or is he? See, that's the beauty of the narrative. The viewer is allowed the luxury of interpretation. It's a bold move, and it works. It's thought-provoking. A good thing in movies, yeah? The screenplay by Ernest Tidyman, he who created and scripted The French Connection, is taut and grim yet playful in a knowingly macabre way. Eastwood has some great one-liners. Cinematography by Bruce Surtees infuses the visual tone with a languid, mildly psychedelic quality, almost dreamlike. The creepy score by D. Barton adds to the atmosphere with an off-key, quivering and jarring resonance that fits the film perfectly. Supporting cast is excellent: Verna Bloom, Mariana Hill, Jeffrey Lewis, and the whole thing is shot through with broad flourishes of giallo-like style. Honestly, up to that point, there had been nothing quite like it, and even though Eastwood revisited the same territory later in Pale Rider, it didn't match the visceral impact of High Plains Drifter. Icing on the cake is the shooting location, the shores of Mono Lake in California, where Eastwood had a whole town built for both interiors and exteriors. He shot the entire film in 6 weeks and brought it in under budget. So what do you have here? Well, here you have a violent, unsettling, highly politically incorrect morality fable that has some uncomfortable things to say about the nature of human corruption, along with some sort of warped justice being meted out, and is utterly unapologetic about how it goes about it. Either you take it on its own terms, or you, well, piss off. Would it? Could it get made today? Hell no. Maybe Tarantino perhaps, but the snowflakes, the Me Too's, the rabid liberal elite would have a fucking meltdown faster than a pig in a synagogue. The stranger treats women appallingly, raping one, who's a prostitute, so I suppose the suggestion is it doesn't matter so much, she's probably used to it, and forcing himself on the repressed wife of the hotel owner. Yet both seem to like it and enjoy their mistreatment. So, big old dear there. He is, however, on a more positive note, kind to minorities, making the local hardware store owner give free produce to a Native American family, and he's also an equal opportunities employer, recruiting a midget as sheriff. He kills, threatens and abuses, all in the name of vengeance and an unknown agenda, and when he's done, he rides out, the town ruined, and its people chastised and broken. It's just so fucking lovely. Some commentators say that the film was influenced by two of Eastwood's mentors, Sergio Leone and Don Siegel, and to a certain degree they're probably right, but personally I don't think either of these two great and often risk-taking directors would have dared to step into this particular nightmare acid western minefield. All credit to Eastwood for being brave enough to buck convention and give the audience something creatively different and challenging, and it's so pleasing to note that Hollywood at the time was willing to take a punt on the project, but that was how the movie world rolled post-Star Wars, a galaxy that was far, far away and a whole lot more supportive of creative freedom and invention, no matter how edgy and off-key and perplexing it might have been. Thank you for your time and attention. It has been, as always, a pleasure of mine. If you have liked anything about this video in any way, no matter how small, please feel free to hit like or even, big gasp, subscribe. And if the Market Hall Cinema has reopened yet following COVID, consider paying a visit. It will be showing mostly crap these days, as that's pretty much all there is to show, but as a part of Welsh cinema-going history, it deserves some support. Meanwhile, here's a song called Whiskey Priest. I met a whiskey priest. He travelled from the east, neither man nor beast, with a rosary of tears. He spoke of souls deceased and of a God released, and as his wrath increased, congregation cheers. Don't take the road ahead, it won't get you very far. That way lies the dead, praying to a dying star. Head for the south instead, there you go, and there you are. With rivers turning red and whiskey in a jar. Was a wayward son, a curse to everyone, and everything I've done spun a web of crooked lines. I saw the rivers run, I saw the end begun, the Bible and the gun in perfidious design. Take the road ahead, it won't get you very far. That way lies the dead, praying to a dying star. Head for the south instead, there you go, and there you are. With rivers turning red and whiskey in the jar. A collar round the neck, like a noose to snap the spine. You're thinking, what the heck, this world is mine. In a familiar